Hello, everyone. Welcome to our part one, Understanding and Modeling with the one and only Jamie Nunes from Common Sense Education. Thank you, Jamie, for being here. Welcome. We are going to kick it off with our Wellness Wednesday session. So this is part one, and I have here on the screen the QR code to sign up for part two. Recognize an agency on March 29th. Same time, um, same format, Teams call with Jamie Nunes as well. So make sure that you sign up for that. And I'm not going to take too much more of your time, Jamie. So I'm just going to hand it off to you. Thank you. And hope you guys enjoy the webinar.
Yeah, you're amazing, Angela. Let me do a quick mic check from you and anyone else. Are you all able to hear me okay? Do I sound like a dead frog at this point? And by the end of the day, yeah.
I hear you loud and clear. Yes.
All right, wonderful. So folks on the call, thank you all for, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, others. I'm hopefully, the idea here over the next hour is to help you all model and to start identify and understanding both digital drama and then what you can do when you some simple things that you can do to start to model these model digital resiliency skills and some of these skills that we'll cover over the next hour. But a lot of that is actually going to have to do with sort of your own input. So if you're tired today or if you're like multitasking, there might be one or two parts that I might ask you to be involved in. So by all means, please feel free to connect or on the chat tell me like, Jamie, I don't want anything to do with you, so don't call on me to answer any questions, okay? All right, let me share my screen and let's get started. All right. All right, so I believe everyone could see that. All right, lovely. Angela, can you just do me a favor? Can you just double check on muteness? Let me know if the visual looks okay. I want to make sure it's accessible for everyone.
Yes, I see the slide.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, let's get started. So here's what we want to do with our time over the next 45 or so minutes. And by all means, I want you to be able to ask any questions. So Angela, if you don't mind interrupting me, if there are questions around the chat, I'll certainly stop sharing my screen so we can have a conversation. Ideally, we want to first just identify what are those online triggers that impact our students. What are the things that they're experiencing online that you should be aware of as a teacher? The second thing is I want you to be able to address digital drama, and what that means we'll get into in a second, but being able to note when your child or your students feel disconnected or feel like they're engaging in something that might stress them out. And then finally, I'm going to give you some applicable and practical tips, which is what it looks like to actually take mental breaks. Too often we see our students both stressed out and also engaging in things because they haven't had a chance to take a mental break from being online. So we'll help to sort of model that for you all in the process. Let's just start with you all, which is what's the best way to empathize and model for our students the many, many dramas that they encounter in their lives? So let me first stop for a second and then ask. I'm sorry you can't hear Ruth. I'm sure Angela can kind of help you address that piece. But one of the things I want to ask you all is to think about what exactly you do if your colleague posts a disparaging comment about another student. So take a moment now and either in the chat, reflect what are some of the initial things that you would do to respond or reply to your colleague. And let me see what you all have written on the chat. So again, the prompt is you have a colleague that posts a disparaging comment about a particular student, either via email or via social media. What would you do to address that? And don't be shy, anyone. I'd love to kind of hear what you have to talk to admin. I love it. Send it to my admin. Ignore it. Interesting. I've never found myself in this situation, but you'd address it with that. Yeah. What if you were, I'll expand it a little bit, but what if you were in the lunchroom and somebody was having a conversation that was maybe disparaging? Interesting. Okay. Beautiful, you all. So one of the things that many of you had sort of shared, you wouldn't respond to the digital post. Thanks, Noel. I really appreciate that around that. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're in connected to, and I hear a lot of the indirect kind of comments on the chat, is how do we model the following skills, right? Being sure that we are empathizing with our students about how they're feeling. What does it actually mean to empathize with someone that's involved? How do you actually understand and empathize with what it is that they're talking about or what it is that they're sharing? The second is, as we think about modeling these things, how do we actually imagine a situation to be handled? Many of you pointed out, like, I'm going to share this with my admin, and this might be a really great protocol. One of the things we want to make sure is, are we aware of whether or not how we handle these situations? And then the final piece is, if you are then being asked to communicate back to your colleague, what is the best way to communicate? What's the not only the platform in which you can communicate or the medium, but what's the actual best way to communicate? And small things like this, while often daunting, could be some really oftentimes overlooked with our kids as they navigate digital dilemmas. So, you all are amazing. I really appreciate the feedback on the chat. So let me kind of operationally define what we talk about when we talk about stress online or digital stressors. These are stress caused by negative interactions we all have in online spaces. So again, I want to make sure that you empathize and be able to understand what the stress looks like for you and others. So what I'm going to ask you to do is on the chat, you can open that stuff up or unmute. What are the best, or what are your online stresses? What are the things that you tend to get stressed out about when you're online, either as a professional or in your own personal life? Anyone have that connection? Now, let's see what you have. What are your stressors? What are some of the online stressors that you grapple with as an educator or as a person in your adult life? Yeah, Jennifer, right on. When tech is not working, right, it can be really like it can be you feel a little antsy, right? Kristen, I like the idea of ongoing emails, maybe replying to all emails or negative emails or too many emails in general. Negativity, Alexander, thank you very much. Rebecca, I mean, I thank you for that. Constant negativity, Tiffany, 100%, Tiffany, like, I really appreciate that. Brandon, I 100% connect with you, which is like the need to always feel on. So what we are attempting to do here, and what I'm attempting to encourage you all, which you all are amazing in this process, is negative people. Right on, Ricky. I appreciate that. Um, the idea here is to constantly understand where our kids are at when it comes to their own stressors, because a number of these areas get in the way of actual learning. We know this for a fact, whether kids are gaming online or whether they're engaging in social media deviancy. Like, how is it that we are empathizing and understanding what to do when our kids are feeling this way? So when there's no internet, right on, I appreciate that. So I'm now going to give you kind of 3 tips. I might give you a 4th one, but I want to just give you some very basic and applicable things that you can do to start understanding what these stressors are, and a model for you what that can then look like as an educator, as an administrator on the call. So the first is, we want to note the types of platforms that cause stress for your kids. And these are platforms that you as an educator might be sharing with your kids. I'll give you an example what that looks like. Or there might be stressors based on what tools or what platform, or there might be stressors based on the things that they are doing at home that they then bring back into the classroom. So let's go through a few of them. The most common stressors that we see at Common Sense are our kids' inability to respond to or having very negative online interactions. Meaning, what happens when a conversation goes too far? Some of you mentioned sometimes always being on, or the conversation of having to respond to emails, for example. For many of our kids, that ongoing communication and the interactions that they take place, they haven't built in the filters to respond to folks their peers in an appropriate way. The second is hostility and confrontations that often happen in gaming situations or in more broader situations when they're on social media. And I'll explain that shortly for you, but the idea is that the child might be gaming and there might be a confrontation that takes place from the game that the child then has to respond to. So these are the sort of the common stressors that we actually see. I'm going to now break it down just so you all understand kind of what these, both the opportunity, how what is presented in an opportunity for these kids when they're on these platforms, as well as the stressor that can lead to disconnect in academic settings. First is phone texting. If you see this, there's always an opportunity for our kids as they get a little older to connect with their peers and their families. We know this through the text message experiences. The stressor is actually having to then mimic some of the text trends or having to follow some of the trends that they're seeing. Let me give you a quick example. Many of our kids, as they get into fifth grade on, often participate in group chats, large group chats. And what you'll see happen in these chats, we see it firsthand, is when a child then doesn't know how to communicate to whom because there's too much information being shared. They might want to follow the same trends of being mean to someone else, or they might want to follow the same patterns of capping on someone else or being critical of someone else. But the key here is to ensure that you're identifying these things are actually taking place, right? How you do that, we'll get into shortly. The next is in platforms like Roadblocks. Platforms have an opportunity to create platforms like this there's an opportunity for our kids to both create and play games online. But the challenge here is that the ways in which and the pressures to then communicate with strangers. Let me share with you all what that looks like, just so you kind of have insight in how this looks like for our kids.
Oh my god, I can hear people. Oh my god. I gotta test this out real quick, bro. Green dude, come on. You can hear me, right?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh my god, this is my first time hopping on. I'm so mad that I missed the 30-minute mark on this, bro. I don't know what to say. Like, I'm honestly just shell shocked.
So what you see here is the Roblox platform release, probably say in the spring of last year, a voice chat feature. And so you might find, again, this pressure to kind of connect and communicate, or our kids might find that pressure to do so, which then can lead to a stress. The third one is, again, primarily in middle and high school, the app Be Real. There's an opportunity, and this is an app that enables a child to have a picture taken of them randomly from the front of the camera and the back of the camera. They randomly give them notifications to quote unquote be real and to take an authentic photo so their friends can see. While there's an opportunity in that and a connection in that with their peers, the stressor often becomes when a child then has to curate their image with short amount of time, right? Having to curate something often leads to anxiety. So something to sort of be mindful of in this space. And then the final piece is TikTok. I think many of you know what TikTok is. If you don't, this is a platform where you both share and create videos. Wonderful way for our kids to express themselves in a certain way, but we know that too much of that often leads to imbalance of time, or what many sort of refer to as doom scroll. So the key here, actually, most recently, I think it was yesterday or even today, TikTok recently released for kids that are 18 and under, an hour limit, meaning that kids are not allowed to log in past an hour is kind of the new regular, or the new trends, I guess, is what's coming out from TikTok. So here's the call to action for you all, and I'm going to give you a chance to do this, and I'll stop sharing my screen, which is asking you, if you're a teacher on the call and you integrate technology, what platforms are your students on regularly, and what stressors have you seen, have you observed? This can be a math app that they use that they feel like that overwhelms them, or this can be a tool where they, like a Google Docs, where they're inundated in communication. But the key here is to help to pull away from the stressor and to help identify what those stressors are when the child is on technology. So let's just take a moment now to either in the chat or unmuting some of the observations that you've seen with respect to the stressors that you've seen that your kids are on, either platforms that you use in the classroom or platforms that you've observed in the family, in the space. Why don't I start with Brandon, are you okay with unmuting and maybe sharing some thoughts on that? And then you can pick the next person to make it a little interactive. You could also say, I'll never speak because I'm tired. Continue with your presentation as well.
No, I would do that to you. No, so my students were on a lot of the things that I'm seeing here: Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp even. And a lot of the stressors I observed was the need to like create even something. Like I had students like rush out of class, like, sorry, mister, I have to post this thing, as if it was the end of the world if they didn't post this thing at a certain time. Obviously I've seen, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, and then just some of the cyberbullying, people seeing my students making fun of what students post, seeing my students make fun of students who didn't have social media, like because they didn't have social media, they got some bullying or teasing.
Absolutely, Brendan. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, because I do think it becomes very nuanced really quickly. We'll get into the content in terms of what to do with it, but what many are pointing out is platforms that really cause stress and drama. Noel, as you sort of pointed out, these platforms like Snapchat or group text messages. And Amador, I'm curious to hear, you wrote AP Classroom inside the classroom. Can you unmute and share a little bit more of the stresses that cause that are created by that? Not necessarily the content, but the platforms that potentially kids are on when it comes to your classroom that might cause stress.
Yeah, AP Classroom is just anyone. I don't know if there's any other AP teachers in here, but it's just it tends to have glitches and complications, and the content's already difficult. So I feel like when I use that, I know there's one other teacher in here that I saw, but the kids just, there's always like a password issue, or one kid every period always has something. So I think they're always a little like apprehensive to anytime I say we're going to use AP Classroom for like a progress check, just because I think almost every kid has had an issue, or they've seen a kid have an issue. So I feel like they just already have that kind of stressor anytime you mention it, to use that technology, that platform.
I so appreciate you sharing that. And if I ever see you in person, I will give you a high five, just like Brandon, because I think you are really highlighting something in the classroom setting. That is, if you're on the call today and you're asking yourself, Jamie, what can I do after today to start to identify what those platforms are? It's very easy to have a conversation about what our kids are doing on TikTok or what our kids are doing in these platforms. I might invite you all to consider asking your students, are there platforms or technology that we're using that causes you a little stress, right? And if you built enough trust with your students, and then you might have a broader conversation about what those are and what that actually does for your students, to start then that process of having more global conversations around what are the other platforms that eventually cause you stress. So really, really great insight, and I really, really appreciate you kind of sharing that. Are there any questions related to this before we kind of move on to like, what do we do about this, Jamie, before we move on this? And feel free to unmute or share it on the chat before we connect. All right, you all are amazing. It's 4 o'clock where I live. Let's kind of continue to roll with this, but by all means, feel free to unmute and share those thoughts. All right, once you understand kind of the platforms that cause stress, we want to make sure we limit our bias, right? We want to make sure that we can understand how our kids are then engaging these platforms. I mentioned a few of these, as I pointed out. There are opportunities, and that's the allure to some of these platforms, but we want to identify where exactly our kids are actually being stressed out, and then potentially start to do something about it. So what I'm essentially going to do now is to think, well, if I'm in the classroom, how are unique ways that I can actually address, once I have identified the stressor, how can I actually address the specific drama itself? And what I'm going to highlight for you all are ways that you can do that using our content, but give you more opportunities beyond our content to highlight, to share that and address that. So we at Common Sense have free lessons. We identify 6 core topics and themes. If you're not familiar with us, we've been around for going on 20 years now. And one of the ways in which you can help to start to address these things is to weave in and integrate some of these activities as well as maybe lessons into some of your curriculum. And what I'm going to do for you now is just to share what this looks like, and then pause and give you an opportunity to explore the site itself, so you can see where you could potentially integrate that for your subject area. One of the areas that we have is, instead of talking about cyberbullying, we really want to encourage our kids to be kind and courageous. So the first thing that I might sort of do as a teacher is, where are examples in your classroom where kids are kind and courageous, and where do you highlight them in your classroom? I can give you examples of how that plays on for other teachers that I've seen. I'm going to gloss over a few of these lessons and resources, and then allow you, as I said, to just explore and connect with these resources. If you're a second grade or an elementary school teacher, you may want to talk about what it means to be mean online, and how to put a stop to that. And so what we've done is created a lesson in second grade that could be applied third, even fourth grade. And that is answering this question, which is, what should you actually do when someone is mean to you online? We have a small number of videos that we will then play, that you can discover playing, and then have those conversations with your kids to come up with an actual framework. If you only have 10 or 15 minutes, if you're on the call and say, Jamie, I don't have any time aside from my content, I might, in a period, or in a classroom like advisory or check-in period, have like a 10 or 15-minute lesson on standing up when someone is mean online, what those activities actually look like. And what we've done for you is essentially teamed up with the Castle organization to create an SEL activity that helps kids explore what you can do to stop online meanness. Right. This is primarily intended for K through second, but we also have the similar activities at elementary and high school as well. So, and we provide you some scripts. Again, I'll give you the resources shortly as I allow you to navigate. As our kids get a little older, right around elementary and middle school, one of the interesting ways that you can have conversations is how to actually stop drama when it's happening. And so our sixth grade lesson that could be applied to seventh, even in eighth grade, is to think and critically about what your kids can do when they're involved in drama. Again, these are very short lessons. You can take up to a week long to kind of talk about some themes, or cover in less than 30 minutes. And what we do here at the middle school, or elementary and middle school level, is we invited teens to talk about their experiences of how they dealt with drama. I'll play for you maybe about 30 seconds of this video, and then let you know how it plays out, or what you can then do with it.
You can say anything over text, which you would never actually say in real life. It's so much easier to fight with your friend over the phone than it is to fight with your friend in person. That's a new thing.
People can just hide behind, certain accounts and certain places on social media and just say whatever they want to say. We kind of have this disconnect that I think sometimes social media can cause, where it develops like almost a tolerance for a lack of empathy.
It's really important to think about how other people are going to take it, because whatever comment you make can be seen by potentially thousands or millions of people.
So what I've essentially tried to model for you is we would then post some of these small videos, and then you can have discussions around what leads to drama, what does digital drama look like, and then what are some ways to actually deal with it, right? So these are really, really simple ways to help to address that in the moment, and come up with some potential solutions around that. And again, I've highlighted for you dealing with digital drama. Again, these are quick activities that you can do if you don't want to do the entire lesson. Finally, what I've sort of provided for you on the call is a curricular connection. So this is a scope if you are interested in addressing it through subjects matter, or particular themes that you cover. I'll give you all access to the deck shortly, so you all can discover. These are curriculum connections at the K through 5 level, and then the 6 through 12 level. So let's do this. I'm going to stop talking for a second, and just give you a time to explore, really. So what I've shared for you is on the chat a link to the deck itself. And if you go into slide 24 of the deck, maybe you want to drink some water, but you're going to stop hearing me speak for a solid 10 or so minutes, and just explore, see what it looks like for you. Again, this is all free. We're not selling anything. and the call to action here is how you might apply these resources, but more importantly, how you might deal and address that in your classroom. And in about 10 minutes from now, I'll start asking the group what they came up with. All right, enjoy your time. We'll see you all back in 10 minutes. And the prompt asks you to put your thoughts on the Padlet. You don't have to do that, but if you are interested in seeing what others across the country have shared around what they want to do with the lessons, by all means, feel free to click on this Padlet to highlight some ideas. All right, I wish I could play music for you, but I can't, so enjoy your time, and we'll reconvene in about 9 minutes. And one more note, if you are watching this this recording after the fact, we will put on the chat where you can explore the lessons as well. So feel free to take your time to explore. We want to be super respectful of your time on this day, so maybe another 2 minutes, and then we'll reconvene and have a conversation about these resources. All right, let's see if we can come back over the next minute or so. If you need more time, by all means, feel free to multitask. All right. Well, thank you all very much for that short introduction, or the short the ability to kind of just do your thing and explore. What are the things that come up for folks? Anything that you found interesting? I noted a number of things on the chat. Yolanda Martinez, can I have you unmute and maybe just share general thoughts that you shared from observation? And again, you can also tell me on the chat that I need to not call on you, but. All right. I'll pass. You got it, Yolanda. Thank you very much for that. Thanks. Jennifer, I see you. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing your last name. Filippini, can you unmute and kind of share your general thoughts on how you might use something like this? You can tell me the class as well.
I was just looking at the superhero, I think that's very appropriate for my students. They can connect with that, drawing comic strips, kind of getting that conversation going. I teach fourth grade, so I don't seem to have a lot of these same issues that some of these people on here are having. My kids are in the classroom just using school-based apps, not really TikTok. So I don't see them using them, but I think it could have a good platform for a discussion of what they use at home.
I love it. Yeah. And one of the invitations that I might find is the lessons that we have or the resources around media balance. What I found in that 3rd to 4th grade level is teaching the kids how to, and you probably already do this, but just reinforcing this. Like sometimes when we spend too much time online, kids, a number of things can happen to us. So here are the ways in which we take a break and we enter the space. Can we all practice that together? And resources, I'll share some with you on offline, just ways that you might be able to introduce that. But 100%, I really appreciate your feedback and your commentary. So, all right, anyone else have any thoughts? Feel free to unmute. I love that. And I want to highlight what you just shared, freshman seminar course. And I just love the fact that you've already used some of the lessons. And please look me up if you ever want guest speakers in the past. I'm always happy to talk to freshman students to address these topics at a broader level. So, all right, wonderful folks. I'm all for spending hours and hours with you, but I want to make sure that your time is worthwhile. So I want to continue to let you know what to do in these phases. If I were you in this case, regardless of where you're at in the K through 12 spectrum, I want to just quickly recap how you might want to approach and model these things for your kids. The first is you want to be very clear with your kids around what drama looks like, similar to what I've done for you in terms of modeling. One of the ways in which you can do that is to create a very basic statement, right? If you ever feel stressed online, this is what you can do to prevent that, right? If you're in second grade, here's what stress looks like. If you're in high school, here are some very basic ways in which online stressors look like. This could be an opening and a prompt. This can be conversations that you have, but we want to identify and normalize the language, right? The definition. The second thing you then want to do is to start to take inventory of the things, as you all pointed out. What is actually happening? When do the kids get stressed out? What is taking place in that platform? You want a space where kids can actually have conversations with you as the adult to talk about these issues. So if you're an elementary school teacher, you might want to talk about things that make them feel uncomfortable online. If you're a middle or high school teacher, you want to give them a space to actually talk about these issues. I used to, when I was teaching high school, have we called it the box, and essentially kids would ask anonymous questions around things that were happening that was causing them stress. Now, the invitation is not to be a counselor, but to provide an opportunity in a space where kids can go to you as the adult to talk about some of these issues. And then the third thing, as I pointed out, the things that you can model is identify a resource that you've just explored that could potentially be helpful in your classroom as you share that. All right, let me just give you the last sort of piece that could be helpful in your journey to model and connect. We've kind of shared this piece, but I want to just highlight, and a number of you have already kind of clicked on this link. Many of our families are seeking advice and support from school and the staff to provide directions for their kids and their students. I might encourage you all, and we have this thing called the resource for families. If I click on this, one of the interesting things that you can click on is having family conversation starters or tips for families across the K through 12 spectrum. So for example, if you're really struggling with digital drama or hate speech, you can provide a kind of just a basic conversation starter tips that families can share with their kids. And this is a really, really great way to either push out or to have conversations with families if indeed they're struggling with that. But this little one pager could be helpful in helping families achieve those conversations as well. So take a look at that if you are interested in that, just sharing your families. I've seen a number of teachers that do this where once a month they share out, I've seen it in different cadence, but once a month they share a tech tip for their families. And that's one of the things that they will assign to their kids to have these conversations at home. Or at the elementary level, I've seen it pushed out through Remind or some of the networks where they're talking about ways that families can have these conversations when they're at home to provide some support for their kids. And then the final piece I'll sort of close with for you all is we all need breaks, right? And one of the things that's really helpful in mitigating tension or even drama is to prevent it before it happens. And so what we've done at Common Sense and what I've done for you all is to provide you, we rate and review helpful apps. And one of the apps that I've given you on this deck is apps that help with overall mental health. And across the board, you can kind of start to see, many of you might know the Calm app or even COVID Coach. There's a number of things that you can do and highlight and pull from your students if indeed you're interested in starting to create mental awareness or calmness as part of the everyday part or everyday journey that students take in their digital lives. So by all means, feel free to take a look at that. Again, these are just reviews. So if you click on the reviews, we are very adamant about promoting kind of what the app says and who it's dealt with or who it's intended for. So, all right, enough of that conversation. Let me just stop by saying this. It's 4:27. We can go for another 15 minutes, but what I typically do is give you all a chance to do more exploration and then ask some questions. But I will give you this piece, which is if you are interested in getting one-on-one support, either from myself or Common Sense, free of service, and because we're connected with the district, I'm happy to give that to you. Here's what you have to do, and you can say how horrible this survey was or how horrible this presentation was or how good it was, but at the very end of that survey, there is an opportunity for you to provide your feedback. In this part of the feedback, you can share your email address and I will within 24 hours get back to you, providing you ways that you can integrate some of this in the classroom. By all means, this is not a sales pitch because it's all free and I'm a horrible salesperson. So if that's of an interest to you, by all means, feel free to take I don't know, 90 seconds or so to fill out the survey. Outside of that, I just want to wish you all a beautiful rest of your day. And yeah, that's essentially my connection to that. Let me close with the deck one more time. I'll put that on the chat for you all. And I've also given you the survey, but I will take the remaining time for you to either fill out the survey, take a look at the resources, or unmute and ask me any questions that I can help you with as it relates to this piece. All right. And if there's nothing else, I wish you an amazing life and thank you for the work that you all do. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you all being alive today. So I will stay on for the next 5 or 10 minutes to take any calls or questions or comments. Otherwise, thank you all very much. I look forward to hopefully getting some surveys so I can work with you directly. So. And if you're like, the heck with your survey, Jamie, I'm tired of filling out surveys. Here's my direct email address. Reach out to me if I can be your thought leader or thought partner in integrating some of these things. Yeah, gracias to you, Alejandra. I really appreciate it. And thanks, Kristen, and thanks, Vina, and thank you all for participating in this.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was awesome. A lot for us to kind of reflect on and think about how we can kind of incorporate this into the classroom, into our daily routines and all that. I think all of the topics that you touched on are super important nowadays, where we're so digitized, right? We're all the time in front of the screen, whether it is us as adults or, you know, our students or our children. I was looking at some things for younger students, thinking about like my own son, like, okay, I want to start this conversation soon in his age, like, so these get addressed like as a preventative way instead of like, you know, trying to fix something that happened. So
Absolutely.
resources, and I love that, you know, a lot of the folks here mentioned it's in Spanish, so great to share with families in our districts to continue the conversation at home, because it doesn't stop at school. It has to continue and be part of our daily lives. So thank you again.
You are so welcome. And you know, if you are a call and you're a parent on the call, just similar to my 8-year-old, I think that I have, just acknowledging that sometimes we can, as adults, be very hypocritical, you know, like just I'm not always the best at modeling these behaviors for you, or sometimes I like to admit that that the phone or the device is often like a temporary babysitter. But you know, just to keep authentic, just to understand that there's a process behind all of this. Like, we've created a vision together, and here's the problems that you'll likely see, and we're going to practice that together. You know, whether it's common sense resources or the way in which you speak to your kids around technology use, is so beneficial. So thank you very much, Ansha. I really appreciate you naming that.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other general thoughts that you all have before? I'm sure you are obviously welcome to go, but if there's any other questions you have or comments, by all means, feel free to stick around. Well, I love this group. You guys are good people, so I like the energy, and thanks for the participation on a Wednesday at 4:30. So I wish I can have like virtual drinks. Angela, next time you got to send people a chocolate and like shots of water or like wine or something to engage in this. But really amazing groups.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you all for being great members of the call. Like, I love all the comments, participation. Awesome.
Sounds good.
Especially this time of the day, huh? We're already like ready to go home.
I know, PD on a Wednesday at 4:30. Not recorded, obviously. PD is great, Modesto City, but yeah, let's give each other some grace. All right, I'll stop talking now and wish you all a great time. You got my email address, you got my survey. Please reach out if I can be of support. Otherwise, I'll see you all at the end of the month, right? Thanks again, you all. Appreciate you all being alive. Oh, Brandon had his hand up before I left. Yeah.
No, that was an accident. I meant to just give you applause.
Oh, gotcha. So let me load that up. All right. Take care, you all. Have a beautiful one.
Care.